Hello, you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Askar Sherlief, and these are the top stories. Police officers are giving their testimonies during the Zhanaozen trial. Some of them recognized riot participants among the defendants, but failed to say who exactly led the operation on December 16th. General Prosecution Office plans to stiffen terrorism penalties. The department is working on the new draft of the criminal code. In the meantime, a video of an alleged confession from a perpetrator of the recently prevented terrorist attack appeared on the web. The national air carrier is raising prices for domestic flights due to the increasing costs on the aviation fuel. A police witness has recognized several defendants in the Zhanaozen case during yesterday's hearing in Aktau. Nuralin Barzhikov, the deputy head of the Zhanaozen investigation department, said some of the defendants were among people who broke the police cordon on December 16th.
For the first time, policemen who are considered victims in the Zhanaozen case have been summoned to testify during the trial. Abat Adilov, deputy head of Zhanaozen DIA, was the first to go. On December 16, he was at the town square and sustained a head injury in the course of unrest. However, Adilov stated that he could not recognize any of the individuals in the dock. The defense attempted to ask the witness for all the information required for the case, but the inconvenient questions such as whether policemen knew and prepared for the riot in advance or who was in charge of the operation were all met with the same answer. Could you please tell who was directing the police activities at the square on December 16? Who was the head of public security headquarters? I don't remember. After the fifth don't know, attorney Arman Jarmenov addressed the judge with a request of a psychological and linguistic expert evaluation, as the policeman was not telling everything to the court, but the judge did not grant the request. The next witness was Nuralin Barzhikov, the deputy head of the Zhanaozen investigation department for internal affairs. He started with a statement that some defendants took part in clashes with the police as well as the riots. During this testimony, defendant Parakhat Dusembaev suddenly felt unwell. He lost his father in the riots and his sister was seriously injured. Dusembaev entered in an argument with the testifying policeman and later shouted that his father was shot dead by the police on the 16th of December before fainting. While unconscious, the defendant was taken out of the courtroom. The online broadcast on the monitors in the press center and in the second courtroom was cut off after the noise and shouting in the main hall. Women were crying and shouting, further building the tension. This prompted the judge to call for a 10-minute break. Dusembaev got so emotional that he felt unwell and we had to call for an ambulance. The situation is getting worse because the statements of the complainants do not match with those of our defendants. Then there is a very strong reaction of the audience in the courtroom. Of course, it's really stressful now. I believe the hearing will only get more difficult when the policeman will be cross-examined. After the break, the parties returned to the courtroom. Parakhat Dusembaev, having received medical assistance, was brought into a separate compartment. After asking for a permission to speak, he requested reporters to be allowed inside the courtroom, as the evidence given by the policeman contradicted the truth. However, the presiding judge had once again refused to grant this request of the defense.
A representative of the Prosecutor General's office said during yesterday's briefing in Astana that the Zhanaozen trial is fair and transparent, while all accusations of violations are baseless. At the same time, all case victims who previously withdrew their claims against the defendants learned that they might not be compensated for their losses after all.
20 people who withdrew property claims against the defendants in Zhanaozen case may lose financial compensation at all, said Nurdaulat Suindikov, the spokesman for the General Prosecution Office. Apparently, the retraction of a claim in a criminal case will eliminate the chance for the victims, who are mostly entrepreneurs, to file similar claims in a civil suit. The prosecution emphasized that by doing so, victims act against the established penalties legislation. Should the state make concession for such citizens and seek alternative indemnification options? After all, a person is clearly refusing to accept the legal way to do so. Quite possibly, some victims will change their opinion after the clarification of legal consequences of a refusal. The court has yet to make a decision regarding all of the retracted claims, but it seems the prosecution is now cornered victims with an ultimatum. If they withdraw the claims, they may forget about the compensation. Prosecutors added that this episode will not affect the hearings in any way. The criminal case over December riots was initiated because of the danger to society. Accordingly, the withdrawal of some of the civil and property claims by the victims does not entail the termination of criminal prosecution. The General Prosecuting Office supports the resolution for a ban on the use of recordings during the trial, as it will ensure the hearings will not be disrupted. Apparently, photo and video recordings create interference and divert attention of case participant. The awareness of the fact that one will be shown on TV or appear in radio broadcast places some constraint on trial participants and prevent them from giving complete and objective information. Suindekov believes that Zhanaozen trial in Aktau is quite transparent despite the criticism, particularly from the international observers. The General Prosecuting Office does not see any violations or reasons for criticism.
It appears that the ban on photo and video recordings in the courtroom during the Zhanaozen trial is stipulated in the criminal code. However, it is still allowed to redraw the hearing using pens and notebooks. The information was announced today by the official representative of the Supreme Court, Oksana Peters. During the weekly briefing, the media bombarded her with questions about Zhanaozen trial but received quite scant replies. One thing was made clear, though. There was a petition to ban all recordings, and the presiding judge took the notion into consideration. Nevertheless, pens and notebooks are allowed, so courtroom sketches, as is often practiced in the US, are quite possible for this trial. Journalists are allowed and welcome to use notebooks and pens. Please feel free to write down the information. Nasol Karajan Basmuna employees who were fired following their strike have been re-employed. 50 oil field workers are still jobless almost a year after the strike. We asked the employer and the government not to find us jobs, but to pay the salary areas. Trying to reach our aim, we ended up without both salaries and jobs, the oil field workers say. On May 17th last year, a strike began at Karajan Basmunay, and over 1,000 workers who joined the protest were dismissed. A government committee formed in the aftermath of the bloody Zhanaozen events had promised to find employment to the former Karajan Basmunay employees, but 50 workers have never saw the promised jobs. The workers say that they want to return the company they had been working for up to 30 years. The head of state visited us, made a speech, and still nothing happened. We went to court, went everywhere, and still there's no result. I was a welder at Karajan Basmunay and I lost an eye in a job-related incident, so now I'm disabled, and still they dismissed me without a record in my job record book. An international observer team led by a member of European Parliament, Paul Murphy, is not allowed to enter Kazakhstan. The team was denied visas without any explanation from the embassy. The EMP, together with representatives of European trade unions, plan to visit the Zhanaozen trial in Aktau and also meet with city residents. However, Kazakh officials opposed this development. According to Yesenbek Uktishbayev, who actively participated in arrangement of this visit, there's only one reason for the refusal: an attempt of the Kazakh authorities to hamper the spread of objective and truthful information about the Aktau hearing. Despite this, Uktishbayev is certain that the visit of the group to Zhanaozen will take place regardless of the circumstances. We applied to the Kazakhstan embassy asking about the grounds for the refusal. They are not going to be stopped by this. A press conference might be held upon receipt of an official request, but the work of the international committee is not going to end there. Chair of the Kazakh Statistics Agency, Anar Mishimbayeva, previously accused of embezzlement, is hiding from prosecution in Arab Emirates. The information was revealed during yesterday's plenary session by Johan Merkel, the first deputy to the Prosecutor General. According to Interpol data, it was confirmed that 7 Kazakh citizens, including the former head of the Statistics Agency, are hiding in United Arab Emirates from the Kazakh justice. To recall, Mishimbayeva was accused of embezzling budget assets allocated for the 2009 census. According to financial police, she caused damage to the state in the amount of over $5 million. As was reported by Jochen Merkel, Kazakh side has filed an extradition appeal to Arab Emirates, even though the two countries do not have a corresponding agreement. Kazakh MPs immediately tried to fix this obstacle by approving a bill on ratification of an agreement on extradition of criminals between Kazakhstan and UAE during the first reading. However, MPs noted that the rate of positive replies on extradition of wanted Kazakhs from abroad is terribly low. Those of our citizens who grossly violated the law and escaped mock by saying that we will not be able to reach them. The number of such escapees last year exceeded 1,600. Only 176 were caught, 1 out of 10. The problem is that Kazakhstan has not ratified an agreement on extradition of wanted individuals with many foreign countries. The prosecution office is working on the new draft of the criminal code, which will include more severe punishments for terrorism-related crimes. Just recently, the authorities raised the phone terrorism penalty up to 6 years in prison, and now they intend to revise the entire terrorism section of the document. According to Deputy Prosecutor General Jochen Merkel, all special law enforcement agencies should make proposals on stepping up the accountability for terrorist and extremist activities. The deadline for draft project submission to the parliament is the first quarter of 2013. It is noteworthy that the question was raised immediately after the National Security Committee prevented a terrorist attack on Almaty. The deputies who were concerned about the situation inquired the Chief Supervisory Authority whether it is time to stiffen the punishment for similar crimes. Throughout the world, terrorism becomes global, which causes more strict measures against terrorism and extremism. Prison term for those crimes is up to 5 years in Kazakhstan. Don't you think stiffening of punishment for extremist activities from 5 to 10 years is reasonable? In the meantime, new details have been revealed in the terrorism case supposedly involving the associates of the exiled banker Mukhtar Ablyazov. A recently uploaded YouTube video allegedly shows one of the defendants making a confession during the questioning. The man on the video reveals that he works for Alexander Pavlov, the former head of the Ablyazov security, and it was Pavlov who asked him to arrange a series of bombings in Almaty. I've talked to Sasha, who asked me to arrange a blast for $50,000. I was to find people who would then help me to set up 4 explosive devices in different parts of Almaty, although only one would be detonated later. The recorded confession mentions Mukhtar Jakishev, who is currently serving a lengthy prison term. The man on the video says he took money from the personal bodyguard of the former Kazatomprom chairman. Jakishev's wife, Jamila, questions the validity of the confession and the video itself. First of all, it is not clear where the video came from and why it ended up on YouTube. If this is some sort of a top secret, then once again, it all traces back to the National Security Agency. They have imprisoned one person already, and now they are after a regular driver who serviced me and by no means was linked to Jakishev. Perhaps this is another attempt to discredit me or put me in a bad light. The former security officer Arat Narmambetov says that now the unknown person on the video will be likely made a witness on the case, thus avoiding the complicity sentence. The expert also notes the strangely calm behavior of the suspect, while journalist Sergei Duvanov says the video was leaked on the net on purpose. I've watched this video recently, and the first thing I noticed that made me doubt the entire thing is that this is not the first time this man is being interrogated, because it seems to me that he acted very relaxed, without any panic, and the same goes for the investigator, who acts without any emotions and keeps calm. This is obviously a video provocation. The fact that it appeared before the investigation speaks volumes that someone is doing this on purpose, to discredit those charged with terrorism. In other words, this is an information war against Ablyazov and his team. Another suspect in the alleged terrorist attack case, the president of the Civil Engagement Fund, Muratbek Kitibayev, gave his comments about the charges of the prosecution office in his interview to the Vzglyad newspaper. Kitibayev considers baseless the arguments of the supervisory body and notes that the idea of political repressions was generated a long time ago by the head of presidential administration Aslan Musin. It was Musin, says Kitibayev, who gave an order to jail journalists and opposition politicians. Moreover, the National Security Committee was ordered to destroy the oppositional political party Alga, and the NSC even has a special unit that specifically works on this issue. The head of the Civil Engagement Fund has nothing to do with the terrorist attacks but believes that the court over the mythical charges can be quite real. Most likely it is going to be a closed trial in which innocent and unrelated individuals will be sentenced to long prison terms. The president's administration will use the case in propaganda purposes, but there will be a little benefit as the current image of Nazarbayev and his regime is far from good because of so many unfulfilled political and economic promises given to people and foreign investors. Who is going to benefit from this? Obviously not me, Alexander Pavlov and Mukhtar Ablyazov. That is important for those who are keen on maintaining Nazarbayev's power. President's political advisor Yermuhamed Yertezbayev firmly believes that all recent troubles are caused by the exiled politicians who fled Kazakhstan. In his interview to newspaper Moskovsky Komsomolets, Yertezbayev emphasized once again that Janauzian violence was supported by specific people from abroad who called to seize the power. The president's advisor also said that Nazarbayev's son-in-law Timur Kulibayev, who was fired from his position of the Samruk Kazana Foundation chair following the Janauzian events, will significantly influence the choice of the next head of state. In the past, Yertezbayev was openly saying he believed Kulibayev to be Nazarbayev's successor, but now he says the situation has changed and the second president of Kazakhstan will have far less power as compared to the first one. There won't be a second Nazarbayev. Whoever the next president is going to be, he will not be able to hold such absolute power as the current one. Inevitably, the status of the parliament in the post-Nazarbayev Kazakhstan will grow tremendously, and it will form the government, which then will become the central body for ruling the state. President Nazarbayev has taken a short vacation, although his press service doesn't reveal whether the head of state spends it in Kazakhstan or abroad. Nazarbayev's last vacation was in July of 2011, and back then the media speculated that the president might have undergone a surgery in a German clinic. Later, the head of state visited Germany again immediately after the parliamentary elections, which was followed with an unexpected and quite extended visit to the United Arab Emirates. Supposedly, Nazarbayev was there for medical treatment and recovery. Exactly a year ago, Nursultan Nazarbayev was re-elected as the president of Kazakhstan. According to the Central Elections Commission, the leader of the nation picked up 95% of the votes, while his campaign was negatively evaluated by the OSCE ODIHR. The organization stated that Kazakhstan needs to introduce reforms for holding transparent and democratic elections. OSCE had also reported of continuous administrative resource abuse and fixing elections results by using merry-go-round voting, busing voters from one polling station to another. Moreover, Kazakh opposition forces boycotted the entire process from the campaigning period to the elections day, outraged by such outcome. On Wednesday, the wife of the arrested opposition leader Vladimir Kozlov held a one-person piquet in front of the National Security Committee headquarters. Aliya Turzbekova has only one demand: to see her husband.
He has been kept in pre-detention center for more than 2 months, and I was supposed to have 6 appointments with him during this time, but the National Security Committee hijacked this opportunity from us. The NSC do not abide by the law, they follow decrees from their superiors, so they put my husband under special conditions and they won't let us meet. Now I am going to file my 16th petition. Looks like all the heroes have been hiding behind the curtains as usual. The protest took place next to the secured facility where the NSC staff were trying to keep the media away. Nevertheless, Aliya Turzbekova managed to hand in the 16th petition for an appointment with her husband. Turzbekova is not planning on giving up. She says she is ready to participate in as many protest rallies as needed. The leader of Alga party, Vladimir Kozlov, was charged with incitement of social hatred and has been kept in the NSC pre-detention center in complete isolation for more than 2 months. This means there is no enough evidence to take the case to court, says Kozlov's wife. They say I'm not allowed to file more than 2 petitions and claim that this is to be the reason for refusal, but that's the right of the preliminary investigation agency. Thus, this does not justify their unwillingness to let me meet with my husband. I don't know what they've been doing with him. He might be psychologically coerced because their lawyers hasn't talked to him since last week.
Oppositionists from the NSDP Azad party say they are under constant surveillance of the security agencies. The politicians found out about it after they visited an arrested colleague at a pre-trial detention center.
Law enforcement officers were caught off guard when Bolat Abilov, the leader of the National Social Democratic Party Azad, found out he is under constant surveillance and his cell phone is wiretapped. The politician says that he is long used to the people in plain clothes showing up unexpectedly wherever he is. Nevertheless, Abilov was resented by their behavior near the detention center where the oppositioners had arrived to visit artist Kanat Ibragimov and public activist Kairat Erdibaev, who are serving their sentence there. A few hours back, I called Asylbek Abdulov and Takejan arranged to meet at 5 at the pre-trial detention center. When we arrived, we saw police and prosecutors officials, all with cameras filming us. This is outrageous. This is intrusion of privacy. Abilov is not going to appeal to the prosecutor's office for an explanation. He does not believe it will bring any results. Although lawyer Sergei Utkin believes it should be done, since law enforcement officers had been caught in the act, the investigative work is not a secret anymore. They must clarify the accusations they have against the politician and give him documents that allowed to initiate surveillance in the first place. After that, they have to tell Abilov about the information they have collected so far. We may now bother them with inquiries all we want and they will have to reply to them, because those activities were illegal, and by that I mean that they had neither authorization nor prosecutor's sanction for their actions. So it's a very serious abuse and the people who are doing this must be brought to criminal liability. IT experts note that besides wiretapping phone conversations, law enforcement agencies have access to all internet resources. If anyone is even suspected of committing a more or less serious offense, for instance, the incitement of social hatred, the social network's owners will provide law enforcement with printouts of all requested communication. It's speculated that a few years ago Skype, that was always considered the most secure solution, granted chat history access to Russian and Kazakh intelligence agencies and allowed to wiretap all conversations about a year ago. First of all, there is no such thing as a security against the state and social networks and the internet in general. It's so for one simple reason: company owners and networks administrations have access to user information, while the law enforcement agencies might get access to that information within certain legal circumstances. That's it. There is no security there. Initially, wiretapping came into practice during the Soviet Union, although it does not mean that every single phone is wiretapped. Experts say the sheer quantity of information that can be obtained will be simply impossible to process later.
The leader of the NSDP Azad, Bolat Abilov, says there is no split among the Social Democrats. The party is still operating just as it used to. Abilov also explained his absence during the recent roundtable organized and moderated by another party co-chairman, Jarmakhan Tuyakbay. Apparently, the Congress idea was a personal initiative of the politician and not a party project.
Yes, we are certainly working. Our Congress has not recalled any decisions over NSDP Azad, with us as co-chairs, and Amirjan Kasanov is the Secretary General. But the authorities oppose it. They refuse to register our united party. So in essence, we have a registered party in NSDP, but de facto we have NSDP Azad.
Есть ОСДП. Де-факто есть ОСДП Азад.
A Tashkent-Almaty gas pipeline rupture occurred yesterday in the Maktaral district of the South Kazakhstan region. As a result of the emergency, around 17,000 people were left without natural gas.
The explosion hole diameter is 1 meter wide. The video shot by eyewitness shows big flames rising up from the ground, reaching around 150 meters in height. 8 employees and 2 equipment units of the South Kazakhstan Regional Emergency Department have been deployed to eliminate the emergency. The incident left southern Kazakhstan, including Shymkent, Taraz and Almaty, under the threat of ending up without gas access. While recovery efforts are in progress, consumers are using the fuel left in the pipeline. As experts at Kazakh Gas Aymak claim, the remaining gas will be sufficient until pipeline is restored. If gas workers fail to fulfill their promise, the consumers will be switched to a different pipeline. There were no official instructions to decrease gas supply for saving purposes, although the supply facilities have been sent telephone messages to all major companies, warning them of the possible need to switch to alternative fuel sources. According to preliminary investigation, the leak occurred due to metal fatigue caused by constant pipe pressure. The official reason will be voiced after the internal investigation is completed. This pipeline was constructed in 1965. The emergency occurred at 5:15 a.m. on the border of the rural areas Makhtarala and Dildabek. Consumers are currently using gas left in reserves, and we hope that the recovery works will be completed tonight.
A discussion of whether nuclear power plants should be built in Kazakhstan has taken place yesterday during a thematic exhibition in Almaty. Shemirden Yurazalinov believes the final decision should be made by professionals.
The chairman of Kazakhstan's Electricity Association advised the public to avoid taking the issue too emotionally. The country has all it needs, including appropriate resources. The other country's experience is also taken into account, Yurazalinov said. Timur Zhantnikin, the chairman of the Committee for Nuclear Energy, immediately objected him. He emphasized that the opinion of people living in the area proposed for nuclear power plant construction should be key. In the end, specialists did not reach a consensus and held their positions unchanged. There should be nuclear power in Kazakhstan, but as our colleagues already pointed out, handling of this issue requires more professionalism and not emotions and populism.
Starting April 5th, the national air carrier Air Astana will raise prices for domestic flights by an average of 16%. The company's press service explained that the exception is made for 3 routes: Astana-Pavlodar, Astana-Semey and Astana-Zhezkazgan, which will be subsidized by the state.
The rise of ticket prices stems from the increased cost for aviation fuel. According to carrier, the fuel increased in price by 200% in the past 2 years, resulting in significant losses for the company. The aviation monopolists claim to losing around $11 million during first 2 months of 2012 alone. The carrier had to introduce a fuel fee to improve the situation. For instance, passengers flying from Almaty to Astana will have to pay $20, an additional $10 if they need to reach Aktau. Currently, the average price for an Almaty-Astana return trip is around $300, while plane tickets to Aktau cost around $440.
Было принято решение о том, что необходимо повысить цены на авиабилеты.
A decision was taken to raise airline ticket prices. This will allow the companies to compensate for losses due to the high aviation fuel costs. We had to introduce a fuel fee starting April 5th.
This is all we have time for now. Join us tomorrow and follow us on YouTube, Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for watching and goodbye.